Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of In My Joyful Era. I am so glad that you are joining us today, and I am especially glad because I have a guest, Vanessa, and she is someone who is very near and dear to my heart, and I know that you will all enjoy listening to her story and the wisdom that she's going to share with us. So everyone, let's welcome Vanessa, the owner of Connected Habits Coaching. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm so happy to be here.
Me too. So, for those of you listening, Vanessa and I met in college, and the way we met, so we were in marching band together, and we met when we were putting together our dorm rooms. And I remember walking into this room that was huge, and there was all this like chaotic noise coming out of this dorm room. And I'm like, what is going on? So I walk in, and there's Vanessa all by herself moving around a 4-person dorm room, all the furniture, the bed bunks were going, the dressers were moving. And I said, do you want any help? And she's like, nope, I got it, thanks. And she just did her own thing. And she is one of the most strong, both physically and mentally, one of the most strong people I've ever met. And so I asked her to come today because she's very knowledgeable about health and wellness and has a fascinating story to tell that is all her own. So, Vanessa, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and what brought you to becoming the lovely woman that you are today?
Yeah, so thank you for having me. Yeah, we met in college and we were both studying to be educators. So we had some classes together, we did band together, and then after college we went our separate ways to do this whole teaching thing. And you lasted a lot longer than I did. I only made it about a year, and then I moved to Nashville, Tennessee, and I didn't find a teaching job there, but I did have certifications and personal training. So I actually just stuck with that. And now it's my full time career. And through some ups and downs with my personal health, I added some certifications. I've got letters upon letters after my name. And now I do this full time and I help other people. And I'm excited to tell you guys all about it today.
I love that. And I remember, I think it was junior or senior year, we were mates. And we were actually like in the same room, and you were studying for some of these exams to get your physical trainer license. And at the time, I'm like, what is this girl doing? Like, she's getting her degree. Now she's doing this other thing. And looking back, I think you were the most genius person ever because as someone who also left education, I think it was smart to have multiple things under your belt at that point in time. And I think that's great. So you started Connected Habits Coaching. So can you tell us what that is and what you do, what it's all about?
Yeah, so I have a private health coaching practice, and I primarily work with women who've got hormonal imbalances and struggle with weight loss, bloating, fatigue, and gut health. And I also serve people who, in the general population, men and women who want to lose weight, get strong, build muscle. That I do that is instead of the quick fixes and fad diets that everybody's used to teach them how to have habits that are healthy because the habits that you have really form up your lifestyle. So I came up with the name Connected Habits because if you have habits that are strung together and connected, that makes up your lifestyle, and that can be either healthy or unhealthy. And I want to teach people to live healthy in a sustainable way.
I love that so much. And I love the Connected Habits Coaching because everything really is integrated and it all comes together. So I'm really grateful. We've had some opportunities to do like different programs together. So we did the what was it called? Goal Getters conference together, where we talked about like how you integrate some of these practices in your career, but also in your physical and mental and spiritual health all together. And I think that's brilliant. And I love that you do hormonal health too. That's something that I don't know very much about, and I'll definitely have to be picking your brain on that some more.
For sure. Yeah, that's something that I became passionate about because I had some own hormonal imbalances myself, and I had to figure out how to feel that in myself. And now I do that for other people.
I love that. So, can you kind of talk more about connected habits coaching as it relates to holistic wellness and how it helps us as women to be healthy in our daily lifestyles?
Yeah, so holistic actually means whole person. And sometimes when people hear that word, they think of crunchy, witchy, woo woo, strange herbalism type yoga people. And there are some people who do define it that way, but I look at the whole person. That's what it means. And their choices and their habits across the different areas of their life. I'm also a certified integrative health practitioner, and holistic health is just a part of that. But the integrative part is taking all of the sums of the part and looking at multiple parts of the body, systems, using multiple modalities to rebalance the person into one healthy body. So we look at sleep, we look at stress, we look at the food, emotional health, hydration, exercise, and so on that people have habits in. And those habits will either serve them or they will hold them back. So, what I do is I help people cultivate healthy habits in all the areas to help them be healthy, strong, and fulfill their potential.
I love that. And I definitely think that there was definitely a stigma around holistic health being like woo woo, like you said. But I see more and more women really flocking to holistic wellness and holistic approaches. So, why do you think so many women are turning to holistic coaches now?
Statistically, women are more health conscious than men. So they're going to be seeking it out more than men are. They live longer, but they're grossly underserved when it comes to their health. I don't know if you know this, but women have more autoimmune issues than men, and heart attacks will present differently in women than they do in men. So when they go to the emergency room, they get treated differently, or they get misdiagnosed, they get sent home, things that should not happen to women. And a lot of the big studies that have been quoted and cited over time are based on data from men. So, unfortunately, women are just very underserved when it comes to health, and we're given band aid solutions for these deep issues that actually have other solutions that aren't explored regularly. And I think it's really important to go deeper and ask why are these unnecessary things forced on women when it comes to modern conventional health practices? So, women have this beautiful thing called women's intuition. We're really good at sensing things, and we can sense when something's not right in our body. It's like a gut feeling, and women know that they need to keep digging for answers. And that's why when conventional systems don't work, they turn to holistic, or they're more open to holistic options when it comes to their health. They don't want to take another pill that gives them more side effects. They want a true answer that gets to the root cause of the problem, and they want to fix it in a natural way.
No, that makes so much sense. I actually saw a video on Facebook last night of this doctor going on to say, here are some questions you should ask if you just go to the doctor and they say, oh, it's just stress. It's like, it probably isn't just stress. Like, there's probably something going on that we're just not used to diagnosing. Or, like you said, the studies have all been centered around white men when it comes to like genetics and pharmaceuticals. So, I think it's huge to be like, no, women have an intuition. They know that something is up with their bodies. And these holistic practitioners are like, hey, let us help you out, ladies. Like, there is help available. And I just love that. So you were not always a wellness coach. We kind of alluded to that a little bit, but I'd love to like hear more about your story into what shaped you into becoming a wellness coach and what brought you to doing this job today.
Yeah, this my story has multiple phases, just like anybody else's. It started when I was a kid. As a preteen, I still held on to some baby weight, and my father would call me names and bring it up all the time. I won't mention it because it's got a little bit of pain there beneath the surface, but that's what sparked me to start this dieting. I think I was maybe like 13 when I started. He made me run, he made me do sit ups all the time, and I was always anxious about what I was eating and putting into my body, trying to lose that weight that he would bring up all the time. Um, I tried 14 different diets by the time I was 22 years old, and nothing seemed to work in the long
Wait, you
term.
said 14?
Yeah, 14 different fad diets.
Wow.
Yeah, you name it, I've tried it.
That's insane. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that's and at such a young age too. That must have been really challenging and really difficult. I'm sorry you had to go through that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But that's what women do. I mean, they start on one diet and it doesn't work. So they jump to the next one, they jump to the next one. So I can definitely relate to the clients I have that have been through that journey because I've done it. I know exactly what it's like. And I can help you get off the diet roller coaster.
No, thank you for sharing your story. It's powerful when women share their experiences so that others know that they're not alone. So thank you for sharing that. And in college, you and I both majored in something different than what we're doing right now. And it was senior year that we talked about you getting this fitness coaching certificate. Can you tell me why you made this switch? What what's the story behind that?
So it's kind of funny. I tell people that I fell into this whole career by accident because I didn't have it on my radar at all. I wanted to be an elementary school teacher since I was probably 12. So when I was home on a school break, I met a neighbor of mine who had just become a personal trainer, and I was used as a practice client just so he could get some reps in. And I learned so much from him and how not to be a personal trainer that I wanted to continue to grow my knowledge in building muscle and getting strong. And I thought I could do better than him. I have this little competitive part of me that needs to prove that I can be somewhat better than someone in the workplace. So I didn't even
You wouldn't say.
just a little bit. I kind of went on this journey out of spite in part. I mean, there was the hunger of me learning more and more about how to build muscle, how to teach people how to do that because my passion grew so much. I wasn't really athletic growing up. I didn't play sports. But when I found weightlifting, I felt strong and confident and like I wanted to beat people up sometimes because I was just trying to get as jacked as possible. So I called a few personal training schools and organizations, and I made the decision to start studying. You could study at a self pace to be a personal trainer. So I did that alongside student teaching. And people say I was crazy for doing both, but I was able to graduate. And then the next weekend, I took the test to be a CPT and I made it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was probably one of those people telling you that you were crazy, and I apologize for that now. I think it was brilliant. So I hope you forgive me for that.
Yeah. If you're a teacher, have a backup career because you might need it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I see you living out your values of you are someone who does want to get stronger, both mentally, physically, emotionally, and you coach other women to do that too. And I think it's beautiful. So part of this is really talking about career and becoming the woman you want to be. And I know so many college women out there, some younger students might be getting halfway through their college experience through their 4 year degree and think, oh crap, what did I do? This isn't for me. I don't really know what I'm doing. Do you have any advice for those students who might be going through something similar?
Yeah, there's so much pressure for students out there to pick their major or what they want to be when they grow up. And let me just tell you to just relax. It's going to change. Sometimes I still don't want to be know what I want to be when I grow up. And I would recommend that you kind of shadow anyone in all kinds of careers to see if you resonate it. If you want to be a pharmacist, see if you could shadow at a pharmacy place. If you like that, then you know that might be something you could study. Different professions, even if you don't think you might be interested in it. See if your friends or your parents can get you connected to people who have different kinds of jobs that you might be interested in and see what it's like to spend a day in their office or shadowing them. You know, life is not this smooth line. There's ups and downs and career changes. I didn't expect to make this complete change to health and wellness, but I'm so glad I did. It's very fulfilling for me. And I don't think that you need to be stuck in a job that you hate just because you have a degree for it. I think an education is important, but you can be successful no matter what you do. It's not necessarily the degree, it's the skills that you learn. And skills can be applied across many industries and many careers. So I would say communication is a huge skill, probably the best one you could have. And just the willingness to work really hard. People need to let go of the attachment to certain outcomes of, oh, I'm going to work in this career for 30 years and then retire because you never know what's going to happen. You never know where life will bring you. So that's my advice to the young ones of today.
I think that's great advice. And I read a book actually. So, our college offered a master's program that I was able to go back and get in leadership. And one of the books, we had a whole class just on one book, and it was called Decisive by Chip and Dan Heath. And there's a whole section about doing exactly what you just said of go shadow, go talk, go explore. Like, don't make a decision until you actually know what you're getting into. Then, once you've made that decision, like, just go for it. Like, you don't know what the outcome is, but don't expect anything in return from that. So I love how you kind of talked about like a degree is a degree. You're going to get those soft skills no matter what. And I can't even tell you how many people I know that are working in jobs that just have a degree. It's just, hey, you need a bachelor's to apply for this position. Some people really don't care what your bachelor's degree is even in, as long as you have it. So I'm really glad you talked about that. And I kind of want to switch the conversation to talking about burnout, because I know you have great stories to share and advice. And I want to really like start with a definition of what burnout is. So, can you talk to us about how you would define burnout?
Yeah, burnout is definitely a part of my story and something that I've had to get myself out of. And how I would define it is it's not one specific place, it's a process of getting to that place. And there are stages, which I'll explain in a little bit, but there's two components of burnout. There's the psychological and the physiological. So, physiological is what happens in the body, how your hormones move and your stress levels and all of that. And then there's the psychological, which is what's going on in your mind. And that whole process of both physiological and psychological is extending so much of yourself outward that you lose touch with yourself, your needs, and your desires, and you kind of feel empty inside.
No, that's a great place to start. And so, as someone who really goes into both the psychological and physiological, can you kind of tell us, like, what is happening in our bodies when someone is burned out? Like, what does that look like?
So, burnout can come in different names, but in the health side, we call it HPA axis maladaptation or dysfunction. And that is the hypothalamus, which is a part of your brain. Pituitary is also part of your brain. And then your adrenals, which are down above your kidneys. So that whole system communicates with each other and monitors your stress levels. And there are arguably, some say three, some say four, but I like the 7 stage model. And I use that because with the data I use in my practice of testing your hormones, you can actually see which stage you're at based on your hormone levels.
No
And so,
way.
yeah, I'll go through the stages really quick for you. Stage one is the initial alarm. You're going to feel stressed all the time, but you'll feel good. You'll feel energized at this point because your adrenals are pumping out adrenaline, stress hormone. You feel good. This keeps going on, and you're going to be in stage two. You're going to be in high stress, but your body will start to show signs of not keeping up. Your hormones will start to drop. Stage three keeps going. Stage four is where we hit initial resistance. So, your cortisol, your stress hormone, it'll be normal, but your body won't adapt to chronic stress. So, with stages one, two, and three, your cortisol will be high. If you test and at stage four and it comes back normal, that means you're on the way down to even further burnout because it's finally come down. And then we move on to stage five, six, cortisol will start to lower. You're going to start to feel exhausted. You're going to start to feel those symptoms where you've got brain fog, you can't really focus, you're tired physically. And then stage seven is the true stage of burnout, chronic fatigue. You've got your low immunity, you're sick all the time. You feel like you have the flu, you've got those muscle aches, you can't regulate your body, bad sleep, brain fog, like I said, and you just don't want to get out of bed. That's the lowest you could go.
I didn't know that there was like an actual health definition of burnout. And if you said that to me earlier, I'd be like, no way, you're joking. But you can actually see it in the body. That's crazy.
For sure, yeah.
So, is there an integrative approach to healing from burnout? Because not only do we want to talk about burnout, like, let's talk about, like, can we get through this? Like, is there a way to heal physically?
There is. I want to give you guys hope. There is. It takes a long time. Do not expect to be healed in a couple of months. My journey personally took 18 months from when I first started feeling totally dead inside to starting to feel like my old self again. It could take a year, it could take maybe even 2 years, but the integrative approach is to support your body from all around. I had a health practitioner once tell me to like treat yourself very gently and kind of nurse yourself back to health because that's what you need to do. You have to sleep, you have to fuel your body with proper nutrition, drink enough water, minerals, sodium and potassium and magnesium. All of those get depleted when you're in high amounts of stress, and you want to pour those in back into the body and build it back up again. And I also recommend herbal supplements for hormones for my ladies with burnout. Another thing you could do is support your digestion and do activities that actually calm you. So people think, oh, I'll just sleep more. And that's great. Sleep is wonderful, but you actually want to be awake while you're calming your nervous system so that you retrain it to live in a body that's safe. The other component is your emotions. Some people go into burnout because they're blocking emotions. Those emotions have to go somewhere, and it's manifesting in the way that your body is with your wellness or your illness. So feel those emotions, process them. It's important to be true to yourself in all aspects of your life. And while you're healing from burnout specifically, it's so important to set boundaries because people won't understand that you need extra time to care for yourself. It's quite an intense time to go through the healing process because you have to be very intentional with everything you do so that it's nourishing to you rather than taking away from you.
I love that. And I love that you said, oh, what was it that you said? It was like you need to be awake to teach your nervous system how to calm down while you're awake. That was
Yeah.
something I wish I knew several years ago. And I hope that anyone who's listening to that really lets that sink in, because going to sleep is kind of like our natural, like, okay, I just got to sleep this off. But you have to teach your regulation system how to calm down before you go to sleep. So that's really cool. I am glad I know that now. Um,
Uh,
so, how were you able to recognize burnout for it was in yourself? And were there any signs? Did people point it out to you? Did you figure it out on your own? What did that look like?
so I've been through burnout 2 major times, and once I think is enough. So don't let your story be like mine, where it happens to you twice. The first time was before I moved to Nashville, and then the other one was after I'd lived here for a while. So in both instances, there was this little part of me that was just aware. I know I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I know this is unhealthy. I know this is pushing me past my safe boundaries, but I'm an ambitious person. I was just so ambitious that all I cared about was my goal of moving to Nashville. I would do whatever it took to get there. And at the time, there were some people that cared about me. I had This is when I was teaching. I had an administrator approach me. She was worried. I had roommates that were worried about me and friends, and they were all really helpful, but nobody talked about burnout. I didn't know what it was. I don't even think I heard the word at that point. And a lot of the stress and emotions that I felt in that season of just working so I could move to Nashville were just pushed inside. Like my body held on to them because my mind didn't want to process them. I didn't want to feel those things. I just kept pushing forward and pushing forward. It was kind of like I punished myself, which is a horrible way to live life. And we don't want to treat ourselves like that. And I was just trying to do it all. And back then, I think I got to that point because I didn't have the tools that I have today. And once you have the tools, you can catch it early and you can reverse the clock and get yourself out of burnout. And the second time it happened, that's the most recent time. It changed my life, changed my career into this space that I'm at now. And the burnout pattern back then was emotional suppression, same thing as before, self denial or self abandonment, people pleasing. I'm going to list a bunch of things and I want you to compare your situation to that because these are all classic signs of burnout. So I'll go back to the top: emotional suppression, self denial, self abandonment, people pleasing, overworking, not saying no to people, big changes and transitions, stressful situations, And the list could go on. But over time, that built up. And the straw that broke the camel's back for me plunged me into burnout again, showing up in all of those ways. I was coaching at two different gyms. I had another part time job, and I had just moved to a different part of Nashville. So I was still commuting to one of those gyms. And so all of this was like stacking up on top of each other over the course of 5 months, maybe. And one day I woke up and I had no energy. I was just a few months before, like I was in that stage one that I talked about earlier. I felt great. I was the strongest I'd ever been in the gym. And then just a couple months later, I was laying on my couch with no energy, so tired. I had severe brain fog that I couldn't read a few sentences on a page. I would space out on the couch because I couldn't have the concentration or energy to do anything else. I also had digestive issues like bloating and lack of appetite, and that can be separate from burnout, but it still contributed to my overall situation of being extremely unhealthy. My hair was falling out. I was getting bruises and like insect bites that wouldn't heal. It would take a very long time to heal. And those are signs of mineral deficiency. So all this stuff was happening in my body, and I hit rock bottom.
I understand that. There's something about your hair falling out in major chunks. That's what happened to me. Is my hair just started coming out. And I know that there's times of shedding, but it was like clumps and it's like terrifying. And then it's like your body's trying to give you like these red flag signs. So thank you for sharing that. But I do have to ask you, like, was there like an ultimate catalyst where you just knew you needed change? For me, it was the hair. Like, what was it for you? Like, what was that moment that you just know something needs to change?
Yeah. So for me, I think it was after a few days of feeling that fatigue, it didn't hit me yet. And I was on my couch just trying to take a nap. And my goal was to get up and continue being productive, but I could not get up after that. I remember crying and staring at the ceiling because I was so frustrated that my body couldn't keep up with my mind wanted to do. And what I used to be able to do easily, I couldn't do it.
Wow. So, when you realized this, did you go seek help? Did you try to self help? Like, what did the healing process look like? What were your first instincts? What supports did you seek out?
So I initially relied on my own knowledge because I already knew a lot about health. I already knew a lot about nutrition and exercise, but I couldn't do that because I had no energy. So I kept eating a lot of protein because in my mind I was thinking, oh, if I just eat well, this will all sort itself out. I'll be fine. But with my digestive issues, my body actually couldn't process protein correctly. And I started Googling, like, what's going on? What is wrong with me? I read so many articles, I read books, I listened to podcasts, starting to put pieces together of what was wrong with me. And still then, I didn't know what burnout was. I didn't know what adrenal fatigue or HPA axis dysfunction was. I didn't know any of that. I just knew that I didn't feel right. And one of the things that I found was the Integrated Health Practice Institute. And what they do is they do functional lab testing. And there's different tests, but the one I did was a hair test. So you can send in a sample of your hair, just a tiny little bit, and they'll actually tell you what's going on with the minerals in your body. And if they're low, that means you're in this burnout stage. If they're high in some areas, it'll tell you something else. But that's what my coach who went over my test with me explained. And she's like, you're burning out. You need to support your adrenals and your thyroid because they're all connected in that system that I talked about earlier. And it clicked for me. But I was also really shocked because I finally had answers and validation because I got blood work done and they were like, oh, you're fine. Just go home. It's okay. Kind of like being gaslit. And all the Googling I did, I tried to find answers. And this one person was like, here it is. I can show you on paper. Here's the data that validates everything that you're experiencing. And I just felt so seen. And there's more to the story about the digging I did after that, but that's what started me on this journey of healing my burnout. And then I actually got certified through that institute, and I can do those labs plus some other ones for the clients that I have.
Oh my gosh, thank you. So I love that you're telling me like all this hair that's falling out. I can just send it to a lab and I can get it tested to tell me more about what's happening in my physical body. I think that's really cool. And you do that for people, right? That's something that you do at Connected Habits Coaching.
I do. I could test hair, I could test urine, stool, saliva, and blood.
Oh my gosh, very
Yeah,
cool. So you and I are both still very young, and it, I think, surprises a lot of people. I was just having breakfast with a friend yesterday, and she's like in her late 40s, and she was very surprised at herself and through my story that we experienced burnout at such a young age. And I know you experienced burnout at a young age. And you kind of already mentioned this, but like we didn't even know what burnout was when we were graduating college. Like, did you feel prepared to deal with burnout when you left college?
I did not. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it felt like. I didn't know what signs and symptoms to look out for. So when it happened to me, it took at least two times of going through it to understand that this is not a way to live.
I wish there was more educational opportunities for like people in college to talk about burnout because I think we're so motivated to like keep pushing ourselves. And you kind of also talked about like pushing things down. It's like you got to keep moving forward. That's what we did in college, right? You got to get to the finals, you got to get the good grades, you got to move on to the next classes. And then we continue pushing ourselves in our careers. And it's so easy to burn out. So if you could go back in time, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give yourself?
Well, so many things. I would tell myself so many things. um, I guess I would start with boundaries. And there's a book out there called Boundaries by Dr. Henry Cloud. And someone who's not familiar with boundaries would think, oh, I don't want to be mean or I don't want to disappoint that other person. But what boundaries actually do is that it protects yourself and in a respectful way to yourself and to the other person. And that book gives you tips on how to communicate your boundaries where it doesn't come across as mean. And you'll feel more confident in yourself. So I'll recommend that book. I also would teach myself about what safe people look like. And the same author has a book called Safe People. Amazing. And what that taught me was my second time of being burned out. I was extending my energy to people who were taking advantage of me, and trying to keep up with that hamster wheel actually tanked my hormones and my health even lower because I just kept trying to please and sacrifice, and I wasn't getting anything in return. It was only coming back and haunting me. So those are two pieces of advice. And then I would also say to be confident in the gifts and the talents that I have and not to hold them back. And I should share them with the world. And that's what I'm finally doing now. I've played small in my life for so long and I didn't feed the fire within me. And now I'm at this place where I can do that. And I serve other people with the greatest joy because I'm doing what I was made to do.
You just made my heart smile. I don't know how a heart can smile, but it's smiling right now. I love that so much. And I think it's beautiful what you're doing. And you're really doing that by being here on this podcast and sharing your story. And I'm just really glad that you decided to do that. So, do you still experience moments of burnout? And what do you do when you feel that like coming on?
I wouldn't say there are moments of burnout, but I've educated myself and I know my body enough to be able to pick up on signs of when I need rest. I just have to listen to those signs. That's what I'm still struggling with. And I do have to pay attention to my mood because that's my first signal. Like historically, this time of year, it's about February at the time of this recording. I used to get really depressed because in the wintertime, vitamin D is a lot lower and we don't see the sun. And so now I've learned I need to be proactive actually starting in the fall and start taking a vitamin D supplement. And it's February and I feel great. Well, that is one thing that I've learned to just be proactive on. If you're not proactive, you're going to slip. And before you know it, you'll be burned out. And then another thing is focusing on what I call non negotiables. I teach my clients the same facts. So here's a little bit of free coaching for you. For me, it's I need to have enough sleep or I can't function and I'm crabby. And then I also need to eat nourishing food. Again, I will be crabby if I don't do that either. So those are the two things that I need to absolutely have every day. Otherwise, I'm not going to be a good human. I'm not going to show up how I need to. And the last thing that I do is I've been incorporating fun days for myself every single month. I just take a whole day off and I do fun things. I explore a new place. I go to a new coffee shop and do something fun. It's like your recent podcast that you mentioned, just taking yourself out for a couple hours. That's what I do because it really is healing.
I love that. I love that you listened to the last episode. Yeah, absolutely. Like loving yourself enough to spend time with yourself and to just truly enjoy your own presence is a great thing to do. So I read, and I've mentioned this statistic a few times, but a LinkedIn survey in 2021 says that 74%, which is like 3 out of every 4 women, feel burnout and stress at work. And what do you think about that statistic? I just have to know.
It makes sense to me because I've been in that place. And I actually find it really sad because women are naturally caregivers and many are conditioned to people please, be agreeable, be well mannered, don't rock the boat, and all of that. And so that conditioning makes them take on extra responsibilities and even take work home with them, even on an emotional level. If there's something dramatic going on at work, you actually carry that with you and it affects your health and your sleep. Like, think about it. How many of us ruminate about work problems even when you're not at work? Even when you're out with friends, you're complaining about work or you're talking about work. So that's still perpetuating those stress hormones and that cycle of anxiety. And it makes sense for women to be burned out. And then on top of that, the women who work and have a family, they're on all the time. They're running on empty. And that statistic, I could totally see it.
Yeah. And for listeners out there, we're going to have another guest coming up who has chosen to become a mom recently and is learning how to navigate the career part of her life right now. So if that's something that you're thinking about, we are going to talk to her as well. So stay tuned for that. Um, but I love that you said, like, it's not surprising. And it's sad. Like, we know we're not surprised by this fact. So, what do you think needs to change in order for us as women to avoid burnout in the workplace? Like, what do we do?
I think change can happen in multiple areas. It's not just the workplace that needs to change, and it's not just the women. I think it's both. Women, first of all, you guys need to have a sense of self and good boundaries, knowing what you will and won't tolerate, and be able to communicate that respectfully. Because once you know that, you're confident in that, and you can tell your boss, I'm not going to work past 5 o'clock. I have my life and responsibilities to take care of. That's showing respect to yourself, taking care of yourself and your health. That's something you have to make time for. It's not optional. I think women need to put themselves first and work second. Because if you aren't healthy, you're not going to excel in your work. And then the workplace, I think it would help to have clear, defined roles for your employees because sometimes women will take on extra responsibilities that's not on their job description, but they feel obligated to, or they see that nobody else is picking up the slack, so they will do it. Women need better benefits like PTO, leave, and across the board, not just for women, mental health supports. I know a lot of companies and corporations will do medical insurance and vision insurance and dental, but that doesn't cover mental health. So that is something huge that is missing. And I wish that people would speed up the adaptation to the current times and reform that. Um, and I think also we all need to define success for ourselves. I don't know if you've noticed this, Haley, but the American dream is rapidly dying, especially for people in our generation who we're struggling to make it out there, us and our millennial friends. And it's killing us as a society. But we also have to see the opportunities that are around us. Success to us has to be different from what it was in the past. Anybody now can find success. If I were to continue on my path of being an educator, I wouldn't feel successful. I would feel miserable. But now in this new field that I'm in, I feel successful, I feel fulfilled in my work, I'm happy. You don't need to follow a certain path, the possibilities are endless. So define success for yourself.
Oh, yes, you spoke to my soul. I completely agree with everything you just said. And I do agree with you that the American dream is kind of being shattered. And my biggest rant is like, we live in a home right now. Like, my husband and I have to work two full-time jobs. I own a business. He's also a Marine in the Marine Reserves. And like, we still struggle sometimes to pay our bills. And there's so many people out there who are in similar situations. And I think a lot of us, when we were young, we picked a career, we went to college, and we felt like we had to stick with it. And it's like, you can create the life that you want. It is never too late. It isn't too late to say, hey, I'm experiencing burnout. I need to take a moment for myself and just pause. I think that we need to bring these things back into our society. And the way you said that was just beautiful. So I'm on board, Team Vanessa, for helping us reshape our policy and what it means to be part of the American dream. So this podcast is in my joyful era. Like, we want to create those joyful lives for themselves. And we're speaking to women who might be experiencing burnout at work. Maybe they're ready to step into an era of owning their own business. Maybe they want to be a mom. Maybe they want to become their own version of a boss babe. Like, regardless of what they want and where they are, they're seeking joy and peace and purpose. So, what would your message be to those people today?
Girl, wherever you are in that journey, you need to know who you are. You can't move forward unless you have a strong sense of who you are, what you value, what you're all about, and don't play small. You need to connect to yourself and what you really want out of life and honor that. Honor that person inside you who wants to come out, the person you've tried to repress. Let her come out. Let her be herself and come out into the world and nourish that spirit, because chances are, if you've been holding back in life, that person is not nourished. So you've got to pour into yourself fully and imagine what life can look like on your terms. There's a quote by Frederick Buechner, and he says, "Vocation is where our deepest gladness meets the world's deep need." So your job, your vocation doesn't have to be something that your parents did or something you feel like you have to do, but it can line up with your passion. Whatever the world needs, your work can meet that need. And that's where we feel really fulfilled. That is one of the quotes I keep going back to just because it's so deep and so meaningful. And then another piece of advice would be letting go of attachment to any timeline you have and expectations for your life and how things should go, as well as society's expectations. You can carve your own path. Your journey is not going to be linear. And this is where people get discouraged because that's the expectation and they give up. Don't be that person. Pave your own path. And if you keep going, you're going to eventually arrive.
I love that. And I love the concept of going on your own timeline. Like, everyone's road, everyone's path is going to look different. And it's okay if yours takes a short amount of time or a long amount of time. It's your own journey. It's not somebody else's. So thank you so much, Vanessa. This has been an amazing chat. And before we come to a close, I know you're doing a lot to support women's health and empowerment. So can you talk about some of the initiatives you have going on at Connected Habits Coaching?
Yes, I have a signature program for burned out women called the Radiant Woman Reset. And you don't even have to necessarily identify as burned out. You can be a person who's just struggling with their hormonal health and low energy. And I pour my whole burnout experience into that, created a program, and have solved those problems for women. And I absolutely love doing that. I also work with women's health in general, and this can be autoimmune problems, weight loss, gut issues, or even the person who doesn't know what's wrong with her. Like, they sense something is off, but they don't know what it is. I can be found on social media. I have an Instagram. It's called at Connected Habits Coaching. Really long name, but you'll find me there. And then you can visit my website, connectedhabits.com, and sign up for my email list. I'll send emails twice a week to the whole list with actionable steps in health and wellness. And right now I'm working on a free resource about blood sugar. So I'm getting ready to release that. If you sign up for that email list, you'll be the first to know when that is ready.
I love that. And listeners, you have to go follow Vanessa's Instagram. She's so much fun to watch. She makes me laugh and she has educational content. And every time I see something from her, I learn something new. And yeah, please go follow her on socials and visit her website. And as our official first guest of the In My Joyful Era podcast, you get to set the tone for all other guests coming after you, Vanessa. I know, big deal. But I want to end every conversation I have with a guest with this question, and that is what brings you joy and what activities bless your spirit?
I love the work that I do, and I'm so glad that after the whole struggle of burnout, I found something that I'm passionate about. Well, that is one of the things that brings me joy. Work can be fun, just so you know. But outside of that, I love to try new coffee shops here in Nashville. I like to go to concerts. I like to spend time with my friends.
Thank you so much. I wish I had like a whole live audience to just stand up and give you applause right now. I just appreciate you so much. And once again, if they want to connect with you, how would you recommend people do that? Is that through Instagram, your website?
Either is fine. If you're a social media person, Instagram is a great place to reach me. Again, it's Connected Habits Coaching. And then if you are more of an email person, you can email me at vanessa@connectedhabits.com. Sign up for the email list at connectedhabits.com. And you can see stories from my past clients on my website, how they found success from working with me, and learn a little bit more about what I do. Please reach out, say hi. I love making new friends.
I love that. Well, thank you again so much, Vanessa. And everyone will see you next week at the In My Joyful Era podcast. Bye, everyone.